This is another mental health feed for my blog Miss Social Suicide, and probably one of the last videos on mental health for the time being, so I feel like I've flogged it a little bit. And there's a few different topics that I want to talk about on my blog, so but I've been reflecting on, I guess, just in my own experience lately and even previously, about how an episode or how mental health condition can alter the course of your life, or it can change your personality, or have I talked about in a previous video about consequences, that even though things can be the symptoms or the fruit of an episode or an illness, they still have the consequences that they have. That's a separate matter from how those things came to be. And excuse me. And I think there's times in my life where things have come about because I've taken a risk that I wouldn't normally take, or I've been more outspoken, or I guess I've done something or I've said something I wouldn't normally do or say, and taken some kind of risk, and sometimes that risk has resulted in something, for better or worse, but it's resulted in something happening. And an example would be, this is years ago now, this is going back, probably I was like 20, I would have been about 20, maybe 19. I had a high, I was hypomanic, and I just remember the moment I was in my living room, the time, I stopped. I was stopped in my tracks because this thing just went ping in my brain, and I just knew in that moment that I was going to go back to school. Keeping in mind, I dropped out of school. I went to a performing arts high school for music. I had dropped out of school, and my principal said that when I'm ready to go back, contact her and I can go back. So, this is like maybe a year and a half after I dropped out. So I had the ping in my brain. I stopped in my lounge room, and I decided that I was going to go back to high school, and I was going to get a scholarship to the London Conservatorium of Music. And in itself, I hadn't done any kind of training or anything since I dropped out of school. I hadn't done any practice or anything. To get into the Sydney Conservatorium would have been an achievement for me at that point. To get into London Conservatorium without a scholarship would have been incredible, really good, really, that would have been ambitious for me, possibly achievable if I had every support, which I did not have at that time in my life. To get a scholarship, and I don't even know if they existed, but I'm sure they do, would have been ridiculous. Not to mention every other practicality that you would need to consider, like actually saving the money to go over there, and living costs and all of that. Or the fact that I was working full time by the point that I had the ping moment, because I needed to support myself because of my living circumstances. So basically, I had my ping moment and decided that I was going to move areas, because I was living out of the area of the school, and so I was going to move back in closer to the city so I could go to that school. And I just decided all of this, and I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and I forged his signature on a document applying for a house to move back, which we ended up getting. I don't know if it was the signature on that or the bond form or something. And so we moved, and I quit my job too. It was a job that I hated though. I hated this job. And it got really bad. I was there for 10 months, and it was just awful bullying and everything. Um, but I quit before I had another job to go to, so it took me a little while to get, excuse me, to get another job and move back. And basically, I contacted the school, and by then, that principal who said I could come back, she had moved on. And I spoke to someone, and I didn't really get past this person. I think must have been the PA of the new principal or something. And she said I couldn't go back because I was too old, and they don't really take old students back. And that was the end of that. But just the decisions that I'd made, I'd turned my life, I'd quit my job, I moved house, I'd forged someone's signature, I changed the direction of my thinking and my attention, and I was like doing my practices every day, like ridiculous, just getting back into my hand and exercises and all those, just getting my technique back and doing all that. So it was just very, I don't know, it was very strange, but it's just amazing how that episode could just take over my life for a moment. And you know, I mean, I can't say it dramatically altered my future. I mean, I'm not really doing, musical things anymore, but just that point in time, it changed, like, it made me make some pretty big decisions. But there are people who, in their episodes, they make life-changing decisions. They make decisions that affect them permanently, affect other people permanently. And for me, with what I've just been going through, I mean, when I first started making these videos for this blog, I was very high, and I'm still not 100% back to earth. I don't know what I am at the moment, but I'm not myself at all. But yeah, I just feel very different. I just feel like, some people might correct me on this, but I honestly feel like a certain severity of episode or illness can affect your personality. I feel like my personality's changed. And when I had the onset when I was 14, I felt like my personality changed. And I'm not just talking about normal developmental stuff that happens to everyone. I felt like I was permanently changed. Like I was never the same, and that's how I'm feeling now. So for better or worse, I mean, this time of taking, when you go through a high, people can take risks, they can say things they wouldn't normally say, or do things they wouldn't normally do, and all it takes is, it's like Russian roulette, because you take risks, and some of those risks aren't necessarily bad risks. Sometimes they're just risks that, like some of the ones I was taking at work, where I just snapped back at my colleague who was giving me shit because I never really stand up for myself, but that day I did. And other times it can be potentially disastrous and might not always be, but you're taking a chance and you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how it's going to result, and when you're high, you don't really care, or you're not really thinking that that could really happen, either one or the two, or maybe both, because there's this invincibility or this fearlessness, and that's definitely, I think, the biggest thing that I felt that entire time was fearlessness. But I think, for better or worse, you don't know when you're going to get to the bullet. Like it's Russian roulette, and you don't know the decisions that you make. Like, are you going to get to that or not? And I know what I'm saying doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but I'm just trying to say, not all risks are, you just take risks and it's indiscriminate almost, and for better or worse, it can shape the outcome of your life. It can shape things, whether temporarily and significantly, or whether permanently. It can change the course of your life, and it may or may not be a good thing, may or may not be the right thing, but for better or worse, that's how it can be. And it's a bit scary. Maybe for some people it's a good thing, maybe for some people, yeah, it's Russian roulette, and it is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. I'm a bit cryptic today. That's all I could say in this one.